Okay, going to go over logging and debugging with K2, and let's see if I can find my cursor. There it is. So we added this to a README, the main README. I'll be filling out these sections as I try to do a little every few days at least. So how do I add debug calls? ArcSQL is the package, and it has 3 levels of debug. Just debug, then debug 2 and debug 3. So you got from less detail to more detail. Pretty self-explanatory, and you can search the code and see how I use this. Transactions are autonomous, so they do get written and they don't mess up whether you do a rollback or a commit. And you set the log level by setting the log level value in ArcSQL config. Now, this is not dynamic, so you can't, you have to recompile the package if you want to change the log level. I've got a way of basically checking a table first, and if the value is set in the table, use that. If it's not found in the table, go look for it in a package. With ArcSQL, I've never really used it much, but it gives you the ability to define your parameters in the package headers, or just package headers, the way I do config with K2, which I find really nice. Really easy to modify, really easy to read. We're not modifying insert statements. I've tried a lot of different methods. I mean, programming, they say, is all data state, and but the next tier is basically just data. Programs are just data. You're always doing something with data. In databases often, and the UI is just a front end to a database in reality often. Obviously, there's processing logic, but you're working with data. But then configuration is another big thing. You got to learn, how do I do configuration well? I have tried a lot of different methods, and I see the same exact problems when I work with almost any product. How are they doing their config? How do you do a shared config? How do you do a an inheritable type config and things like this? This is very simple. This is what we're doing. But got a little bit on a rabbit trail. Let's get back on track here. So you can add a key if you want to this call, and you could go look at the code and see how this works. Basically, everything calls log interface in the ArcSQL package body. So the key just gives you a way to group your data, in the table. It's nice, but not always necessary. Usually, I'm doing something very simple, just throwing out the debug text. And this is how you would look at your data for a particular key. I use this a lot. And I kind of have a standard way. I add the debug call to the entry point on pretty much every procedure or function. Most of the time, it's just regular debug. If it's something that I can, it's in a loop or it's going to get called thousands of times, I'll tend to change that to debug 2, and then I'll look at the ArcSQL log table, and if there's a lot of entries in it, I can do a group by or something like that, substring, and go, oh yeah, a lot of these are getting called, so we can change those to debug 2 calls over time. What would be cool would be like something that dynamically changes, like if it can evaluate itself and change. That would be kind of cool. And then, so you can also add tags. I've never used these. Why did I add them? I'm not sure. But you separate it, comma separated list. It's just going to pass on whatever you put there. So that's debugging, and it works really well. I've never found a strong need to, stop program execution partway through and all that. I mean, on a complicated program, I'm sure that, especially a program you're not familiar with, the kind of programs I write, usually I can narrow the problem down to 1 or 2 procedures, and hopefully those are relatively small, and then I can add a few debug statements if I need them, figure out what the problem is, and then I'll usually just leave them there and comment them out if I ever need them again. So this interface, like I said, is just calling log interface. You can create any kind of value you want. In fact, I just added debug secret. You'll see that. So let's update the docs. So debug secret is why I started working on this. And if you watched the last video, you know I thought of that during the last video and thought, oh, I better go add that while I'm thinking of it. So you can do log, log notify, notify, log deprecated. If something's deprecated, this is a good way to kind of catch, put that in there for a while, and eventually you can go check those logs and say, oh, somebody's using this deprecated thing that needs to go away or something. Get some idea. I'll often do it just for myself, just to be sure that I'm not removing something that people are using. I try to put a little fail-safe in there. Audit, security event, log error. I use that in my error handlers a lot. Your debug calls, log pass and fail for like little unit tests. Log SMS is supposed to send an SMS, and log email is supposed to send an email to a particular address or contact group or something like that. That's actually broken, which is to do down here. I broke that. I do need to fix it because it's really useful. You can associate any of these values, like you can set them to send an email or a text, which makes it really easy to alert on something very easily. Simple. It's not alerting, but it's it's a way to, hey, log an email if this occurs. Or if you say log critical, you could add log critical and then send an email and a text on log critical. So need to fix that and get that working again. So the log types are all in ArcSQL log type. You can add and subtract from these. You're going to see that in just a minute because I'm going to show you the code that I worked on. And this is where the flag is set for SMS or email. And the SMS has to be an email address. So your phone usually has an email address that you can send to, like at Verizon, and it'll send you a text. Someday we'll integrate this with, a real SMS service or something like that. Okay, so let's do a quick code review. K2 README, I added just what you just looked at, and I need to update it because I made a change. And then ripped out a little bit of the ArcSQL README. There's pretty much not going to be any, most of the stuff won't be here. We'll see what ends up here. Most of the stuff will be in this big README. ArcSQL package header. Got rid of some stuff we weren't using. It was kind of goofy. And we, what did I do? Oh, changed the indentation there. And I added this debug secret. And then on the package body, you can see got rid of some stuff that wasn't being used. We added a log type for audit since that was missing. We do want to send an email on an audit event. I don't know if that's actually true, but maybe it should be false. But you can change that. And then our log interface, we added some substrings. I passed in something that was too long one time, so I went ahead and added substring limits to this just so we won't hit those errors. If you pass a key or tag in that's longer than 120 characters, it'll just get truncated or trimmed. And then here's our debug secret function, and you can see, I have not saved to secret ArcSQL. Is there anything in here? I don't think there's anything in there. Yeah, so I need to save that. We've added that. That should show up. Oh no, you know what? That doesn't show up until I merge it, until I copy that into the default dev ArcSQL config. I can do that right now, actually. We'll just do that real quick. So this is how you would merge code. I would use WinMerge. Normally, I would just do a search on these, and let's see, secret ArcSQL config. But we can do a manual one there, and there it comes. So there's our change to the ArcSQL config. Now, all the other config files are like config with C-O-N. ArcSQL CFG is CFG because there's actually a table named ArcSQL config. And that's the one that kind of stores, it can store values in. You can change, you can have you can check that table, have it automatically check that table before it pulls the value from the package header if you want. There's a way to do that. Okay, so added a to-do here. I just throw my to-dos in everywhere, and then I can write a find grep, and it kind of pulls them out, and I'll get a page full of them, and I usually have things to work on. So let's make sure that it's somewhere. So one thing I want to do is add memory caching to debug and dump on error. This is something I built before, and I never got around to implementing again, but basically you like keep the last 1,000 or 10,000 calls in an array in memory, and then if an error occurs, you grab that array and dump it. Yeah, not sure how well that works with a multi, where you've got different sessions running and stuff. I'm not sure that that would actually work very well. I hate to store it in a table, but I guess you could use a temporary table or a global temporary table or something like that, where you essentially got global visibility, and so maybe it will work. Maybe it will work. Usually there's a way. And so yeah, we went through here, and I think that's it. So I'm gonna check this in, and that's a little bit about how I do debug, and I use it a lot, and probably one of the biggest features of ArcSQL, but yet one of the simplest. So if you want to use it, go ahead. You don't have to use all the other stuff. You can just use that, or you can steal the code if you want to. It's all available. All right, thanks.